Alright, so today I wanted to show you a little bit more about something that we showed you for a Pi Day special. And that's how to get Node.js set up so that you can run a React app in a Docker container. But this isn't just any React app, it's a development React app. So when we set up NPX and whatnot, we're going to set it up in a configuration that will bring down our files. But that can be kind of hard to work with, especially inside of a Docker container. So what this Docker container is going to do is actually mount those images to a local directory. And that's going to be somewhat easier to work with, but you're still going to have to use SSH or something to get those files moved around. Well, we can take that one step farther, and we can actually mount them to a folder on our host system, so we can just edit them with a tool like Atom, like you see me doing right here. All right, so let's get to it and take a look at how I set this up. So in order to download a container template, we're going to select local. We're going to go to CT templates. I'm going to press templates. And in our case, we want Ubuntu, so we'll search here for Ubuntu. That'll show us all the different Ubuntu images available. We're going to work with 22.04, like I said before, but I actually need a 23.04 image. So let's take and select that so we can download it here, and we'll press download. Okay, so now you can see task complete. So we're able to exit this screen. I do want to note that if you exit this screen before task complete, that the process will continue in the background. So here at the Proxmox web interface, we're going to start out by making a container that we're able to install Docker into. So we'll start that process by clicking Create Container, and we're going to give the container a name. We're also going to fill out a password for it. Now we're going to leave unprivileged and nested checked. Now the template we're going to choose is the 22.04 template. Press next. Press next again, leaving 8 gigs of disk size. 1 CPU core should be sufficient. Memory, 512 will be sufficient. Network, are going to set ours up for DHCP, and I'm going to change a bridge to a bridge that works with my network. You may not have to change a bridge for your network. DNS we'll leave alone, and we're going to confirm the setting. Now Proxmox will make our container that we want to use, and we should have a container. Okay, so now that we have our container, we can go ahead and start it and press console. So with our console open, we can log in with root and password that we set up during the creation of the container. The first thing I always do is run an apt update, and I'll string it in with an apt upgrade -y just to make sure everything's updated. Alright, so now everything's updated. We can start the installation process of Docker and Docker Compose. I'm going to be following the directions directly from the Docker website on installing Docker Engine. And the first thing we're going to need to do from their website is install some dependency software here. So we're going to install CA certificates, Carl, and GNUPQ. Now we're going to install something to a folder called etc apt keyrings. And we're going to use Carl to download a GPG certificate. We're going to run chmod on that same keyrings folder, and we're going to add a repository to our system. Now we're going to update again. And it's finally time to install Docker Engine, Docker Command Line, container.io, and some Docker Compose files as well. All right, so we can check and see if Docker's running and been installed by running docker-v, and it has. So the next thing we want to do is set up a new user account so we don't have to continue to keep working under the root user, and we're going to do that in Ubuntu by typing add user and the username. Our username today is going to be VE. We'll enter our password. Now we can press the up arrow, and we're going to add VE to sudo by adding sudo to the end of the command, and we'll also add it Docker. All right, now we can exit and log in with VE. Now we'll enter sudo passwd-l root and our sudo password. This will remove the login rights for our root account so we can no longer use it. Now that we have Docker installed, it's time to go ahead and retrieve the files from GitHub that we need to create our React app Docker container. So in order to do that, we're going to need to copy this URL up here and we can head back to our console. Here at our console, we'll enter git clone, and we'll go ahead and paste in that URL that we retrieved. Now we can hit enter, and it downloads everything from that particular repository on GitHub. So if we hit ls, we noticed we have a folder called React.JS _ Docker. We can copy the name, and we can cd it. Running ls again, we can see that we have an image, and we're going to go ahead and go to cd image, and then it'll open our image folder. Running ls, we have a Docker file, and we're going to have to build our image, so we're going to use the command docker build -t React.JS _ to go ahead and build our new image. So now that our image is created, we can go ahead and run our image, and we're going to do that with docker run -d -p 3000 to 3000, and then our container name, or our image name rather, React.JS. So now that our image and our container are up and running, we can run docker ps, and that's going to give us some information about our particular Docker container that's running. We're going to want to go ahead and take note of this container ID number, because in our next command, we're going to use that, download a bunch of files out of this particular image and onto our host. Now what this is going to do is allow us to be able to work from files on our host, so we don't have to rebuild this image with our particular files every time we make an edit and do development. Remember, this is meant to be a development Docker container where we can work and change things, but still have things containerized so that they're easy to manage inside of our system. And we know everything's going to work correctly long term when we package this all up into a Docker image and deploy it. I also needed to remember to edit our username here. In our case, it's VE. So now I'm going to use our container name right here, and I'm going to run docker stop and our container. Now running docker ps, we can see that nothing's running. Now let's go ahead and take a look at where it downloaded our app files to. And first thing we're going to do is enter cd ... to get back there, and JS. And you can see the My Apps folder has been added that stores all of our apps file. All right, so let's go ahead and now use nano to edit our Docker Compose file. And the edits we're going to make here again is just to add our username to this line. This is the line that's going to mount those folders from that we downloaded for our My Apps file to the My Apps file inside of the Docker container to easily allow us to edit them from any system, or at least at the moment, our host system. All right, so now we can execute docker up. Now later we can add a -d to it so we don't get this output. But for the first execute, I like to go ahead and just run docker compose up, and you can see everything fired up. So at this point I usually press Control-C, which will stop the container. I press the up arrow, and I add the -d. So this time when it starts up, I don't get the whole log output. At this point, we just need to run an IPA because we're using DHCP, and we're going to grab our IP address for this particular container here on Proxmox. Now we can go back to our desktop, open a tab on our web browser, paste in that IP address, add a :3000, press enter, and we see our initial React page. Now that's all fine and dandy. We have a React website up and running. We're able to do our stuff, but we have to edit all of our files here from our container. Kind of annoying. Well, we don't have to. We can actually go ahead and mount a file here on our host system so that we can edit just like I am here. And let's look about how to do that. The first thing we're going to need is a terminal. This is also able to be done from Windows or Mac. So I've gone ahead and unmounted the files here in this React file so you can see that it's completely empty. And here at our terminal, we're going to need to install some software. So we're going to run sudo apt install sshfs. And you can see that I already have it installed, but that would have installed the software if I needed it. All right, okay, so now we can run sshfs, our connection to our server. In our case, it's going to be a username of VE at our server IP address. Then the folder we'd like to mount, which is stored at home username React.JS on dash Docker, and then the file path to the folder we want mount to, which in our case is at desktop, and we called it React. Now we'll press enter. This is a new server for us, so we're going to say yes, and we're going to enter the password for the server. Now when we open this React file, or folder rather, you can see that we have all of our files. If I go ahead and clear out everything that I have here on Atom, and I open my app and SCR, and then we can edit the apps.js file. Let's just add hello from VE. Saving this file, coming over, you can see that now our React website says hello from VE. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial about using our Docker image, and you're able to start building React and Node.js apps on your own. As always, have a good night.